The global birth rate is undergoing a noticeable decline. As of 2023, the average number of children a woman is having is 2.3, which is a significant drop from the previous number of 5 children per woman back in the 1950s. The substantial halving of the birth rate raises questions about the reasons behind this trend, its potential continuation, and of course, implications. Hi, I'm Nina, and here at Conception IQ, we delve into these matters more. To explore this phenomenon, I embark on a journey to TikTok, seeking insights from the general public. Here's the video. I don't know if you know this, but if you don't, you should. The global population is declining. This means more women and men are less and less interested in having kids, or they are they're either opting for smaller families or opting to stay childless. And I wanted to know if it was more of an issue with finances, or maybe an issue with not finding the right partner and trusting the right partner. Is it more of, you not wanting to give up your career, especially if you're a woman, or maybe you don't want to trade in your lifestyle and become, a little poorer in order to support kids? I don't know. I'm just so interested in this, and I want to know if people are childless, like why they decided that was the best option for them. Let me know either in the comments or stitch this. That would be great to find out what the population thinks. Thank you. While I anticipated finances to be the major factor in why people aren't having kids anymore, or they're having less kids now, this generation surprised me with their profound awareness as a collective. Their responses highlighted concerns about an uncertain future, worries about the world they would pass down to their offspring, the desire to avoid transmitting trauma, feelings of loneliness, and even a critique of our hyper-individualistic society, which prioritizes self over community. These answers formed a compass for my quest for truth. Notably, the depth of these responses suggested a reasonable level of education among those answering, likely high school or beyond. Moreover, a shared lack of optimism stood out in the comments, motivating me to explore the relationship between education, total fertility rate, and optimism in more developed nations. So, does a nation's emphasis on education correlate with lower birth rates? What do you guys think? If you think yes, then you'd be correct. But the underlying causes are more intricate than one might assume. In brief, women who are pursuing higher education often delay childbirth to focus on their careers. This results in later marriages, postponed parenthood, and an enhanced sense of empowerment, reducing adherence to traditional gender roles. Moreover, as a nation becomes more educated overall, the economy tends to go rapidly, outpacing less educated countries. In 2012, UNESCO conducted a study revealing that for each dollar invested in education, there would be a return on $10 to $15 made just from economic growth. With education-driven technological advancements, a skilled populace becomes vital for capitalizing on these innovations. Researchers Frank Gottmark and Malte Anderson noted that technology favors investing in extended education, in turn raising the cost of child-rearing and impacting women's roles in the job market. Families, therefore, tend to opt for fewer highly educated children, leading to a decline in the total fertility rate. In fact, total fertility rate was more strongly related to education than to GDP in most countries that in their study, and so total fertility rate has little to do with how successful a country is economically. Education has more of an impact on total fertility, which I found very interesting. The same study found that communities with stronger religious affiliations tend to have higher total fertility rates. The link between religion and higher birth rates prompted the question, is it due to traditional gender role reinforcement in many faiths? Is it due to religious mandates promoting family? Or does faith promote a general sense of optimism that would lead someone to want to have kids? In terms of the religious mandates promoting family, recently Pope Francis voiced his concern about declining birth rates despite not having children himself. In a recent Vatican audience, he expressed, "Today, we see a form of selfishness. We see that some people do not want to have a child. Sometimes they have one and that's it, but they have dogs and cats that take the place of children. He lamented that pet keeping diminishes us and leads to an aging civilization without humanity. What can you say to that, really? In terms of religious people having a higher sense of optimism than atheists, for example, a report by the Barna Group titled The Connected Generation surveyed 15,000 adults across 25 countries, and the findings revealed that practicing Christians exhibited less anxiety and more optimism for the future compared to those without faith. So when they compared them to the people who were without faith, their anxiety levels were 20% versus 33% in the atheists. Optimism was 51% felt optimistic of the Christian group, and 34% of the atheists felt optimistic. Additionally, fewer practicing Christians reported loneliness. So 16% of Christians reporting feeling lonely compared to 31% of atheists, and uncertainty about the future. So 27% of Christians were uncertain about the future versus 51% of atheists. While the study focused on Christianity, the trend likely extends across other religions. The belief in a higher force seems to breed a sense of security and optimism, as explained by Harvard professor David Rosmarin. Across the gamut of religious traditions, spirituality can engender the perspective that things happen for some reason and serve a greater purpose. This in turn deploys our attention towards the potential for a brighter future, which can create a sense of optimism even when one situation seems dire. Okay, this is not a video convincing you to become religious. I'm just sharing the data. So religion is associated with an increased fertility rate. Education is associated negatively with a fertility rate, with a total fertility rate rather. So that's all very good, but you might be thinking to yourself, why should I care about the global birth rate? Well, to put it simply, a declining birth rate will affect all of us, but in different ways. The bad news is that the population decline means that there will be consequences for the global economy. Our current economic model heavily relies on the constant expansion of humanity, okay? The idea being that we need more and more people to replace the older generation for economic success, which is determined by a large labor force and greater innovation. So we need more people to have more ideas that we can help implement and improve our lives. In the article titled Baby Bust, Could Population Decline Spell the End of Economic Growth?, Charles Jones, a professor of economics at Stanford, explains that if the population declines, living standards will flatline and the number of humans will eventually dwindle to zero. But doesn't a lower population mean there'll be more resources to go around? Theoretically, yes, but in practice, no. Less people, explains Charles Jones, means that less and less ideas. And that is important because people are the key input to producing new ideas. If population growth is negative, the inputs to creating ideas is shrinking, and that naturally leads to the stock of knowledge to stagnate. When you look at countries like Japan that are already experiencing what we call shrinkonomics, the financial situation is dire. The wealth gap between the elderly and the young sectors of society keeps on increasing, and the weight of economic burden will be shifted onto the youth as they'll be expected to pay more in pension and social security benefits in order to maintain the older generation standard of living. The good news for the tree huggers, I suppose, is that less people will mean a healthier environment. So in an article published in the Scientific American titled Population Decline Will Change the World for the Better, the author Stephanie Fieldstein writes, where our current model of endless growth and short-term profits sacrifices vulnerable people and the planet's future, population decline could help create a future with more opportunity and healthy, biologically rich world. We're at a crossroads and we decide what happens next. Well said, Stephanie. She also points out that while human population has doubled over the past 50 years, wildlife populations have plummeted by an average of 69%, which obviously cannot be good. With the smaller population, there'll be less of an impact on the environment and greater chance for nature to flourish. So if the trend is for richer countries to have less and less children than impoverished nations, what is the solution for stabilizing economy while scaling everything down? As Stephanie writes, world leaders have done nothing to prepare for a world beyond the paradigm of endless growth. Her solution is to invest more in the aging population, healthcare, and redesign communities to meet housing, transportation, and service needs for older people. She says that we need to move our economy towards one where people and nature can thrive. That means managing consumption, prioritizing social and environmental welfare over profits, valuing cooperation, and recognizing the need for a range of community-driven solutions. So these practices already exist in mutual aid programs and worker-owned co-ops, but they must be the foundation of our economy rather than the exception. So this is my first video on YouTube, and I think it sets the tone to explain the purpose of this channel. With lower fertility rate and trends in women who are pushing back, marriage, child rearing, all that, I wanted to create a channel which will educate people on how to have a postponed parenthood. Okay, so all the steps you need to take, fertility clinics in whichever country. We'll do case-by-case studies on fertility clinics by country. All of the information that you need to make the best decision for yourself. I'm not pushing parenthood or motherhood on all women. I understand that it's a personal choice, and who am I to tell you what to do in any case? But I think it's an important conversation to have, so you fully know your options and you can decide, I want to be a mom, but in 10 years time, maybe when I'm 45, and how do I prepare for that? Or I've learned all the information, I'm 0% interested in being a mom, but thank you. Thank you for telling me something maybe I didn't know. Okay, so if this is of interest to you, please subscribe and follow along, and I'll cover a wide array of topics surrounding fertility and health to empower you and to make the best decision for your future. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.